This week, we saw two proposals unveiled by Republicans as they are looking ahead to having session in about 2 weeks. And we're talking about taxes and addressing the child care industry. First, with the tax proposal, Republicans held regional press conferences, and we knew this was coming. The governor called on Republicans to send him a revived plan. But this one is slightly different because it targets retirement income, but it also targets, again, the third income bracket. And what I mean by that, it would lower the third income bracket from 5.4% to 4.4%. So that's not something that the governor is really on board with. The question now is, JR, where do we go from here? Is he going to sign it once it reaches his desk? Who knows?
So the governor indicated before that if you gave him a tax cut that was paired with child care subsidies, he'd be on board. Republicans seem to have no appetite for spending more money. They want to try and put pressure to give it back. So I don't see a lot of compromise just yet on some kind of a deal. The question is, does this package pressure Evers at all to change his mind or his position? Doesn't sound like it so far. He did raise, back when he vetoed the top two income tax brackets in July, this question about federal money. So the U.S. Treasury Department has said if you take ARPA money, for federal COVID money, you can't use it to offset a tax cut. Now the thing is, they're not going after anybody who's done it, who's cut taxes. Right. So no state's paid a penalty for doing this. So is that threat real? Maybe, maybe not. But the governor did raise it before, is raising it again, that we need to have a smaller tax cut package to meet that requirement. Does that hold up? We'll see. But I'm wondering, is there any room for a compromise when I still get the sense of some lingering tensions and lack of an appetite for working together just yet among Republicans and the governor.
Right, and moving on to child care, we're going to highlight some of this package. And like you said, I mean, the governor said, hey, if you want to work on tax cuts, show me a plan that will address the worker shortage and just the struggling child care industry as a whole. He's been traveling the state trying to get Republicans' attention about that. They released a package of bills that would largely roll back a lot of regulations. It doesn't spend a lot more money, like you mentioned. Here's what some of them would do. It would raise the maximum number of children that can be in a day group center, would also lower the minimum age from 18 to 16 to supervise children alone, and it would also issue some new programs like a child care savings account and a new loan program for providers to expand capacity and make other upgrades. Now, the governor's, not him, but his staff already quickly shot down these proposals. So this is what are we going to see in 2 weeks when Republicans are likely going to pass these bills? And then it's up to the governor to make a decision.
This is another example of the Republican approach is to deregulate, and the governor's approach is how to create financial support for the industry. We all know from the headlines that child care providers are struggling across Wisconsin and the nation. We know it's a workforce issue. The governor called that special session September 20th to come and take his workforce development package. He included child care subsidies. Republicans don't want to spend money. If they spend money, it's an ongoing commitment, not just for these 2 years, but when do you turn off that spigot? Can you ever turn it off? That's their worry. With what they're talking about is basically rolling back regulations. What's the governor's incentive to do that? Those rules are there for a reason. They've been put in place for a reason. He's not a big deregulation guy, so I don't know how he's going to really embrace this when they're not going to do the subsidies that he wants to do.
And also this week, we had the next step in the confirmation process for Megan Wolf, who is the state's top election official at the Wisconsin Elections Commission. She did not show. There was no surprise because she indicated a week earlier that she wasn't going to come because the Attorney General argued that they don't believe it's lawful that Republicans are moving forth with these hearings over the fate of her job. Now, we know Republicans ultimately will like to fire her once they appoint her in the Senate. But during this public hearing, it was mainly a lot of clerks, supporters praising Wolf. Meanwhile, there was a lot of election deniers who have doubts in Wolf that kind of got a platform in a sense. Republicans and Democrats kind of sparred with one another over this. But the real question is, now that we're hearing from the chairman of the Senate Elections Committee, he has not made a decision yet on whether to hold an executive committee to hold a vote that would move her to the Senate floor. And there's probably a reason why, because that likely could be a legal challenge.
Yeah, because Democrats argue that there's no vacancy, that there wasn't a renomination, that she is just there. She's in that position. What's interesting is Republicans kind of backed themselves in a corner by saying she's been renominated. If you look at state law, if there's no new nomination after her term expires, after 45 days, a committee controlled by Republicans can appoint an interim administrator. But now Senate Republicans have said, we say there's been a reappointment. They have put themselves in that argument. Well, they could have just gone the other route, let 45 days go by and appoint somebody new on an interim basis at least, and gotten rid of Megan Wolf. So now It's going to be ultimately up to the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, probably, the election administrator is, if there's a final vote. Is that going to be enough, just having the hearing to satisfy the critics, or do they have to go through a vote to keep their base happy? And if they do that, then we go to the courts, and then you have this legal fight playing out into 2024,
right.
The presidential election coming up. That's a tough look for Wisconsin.
All right, that will do it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.